Good evening. This is the video newsletter for Buy Sell Short for Wednesday, actually Tuesday, March 15th. Getting ahead of myself there. What we're going to start off today with is the Nikkei, which is the reason this market is just getting beaten over the head right now. Of course, as you all know, the tragedy going on in Japan has caused the Japanese stock market to plunge. Was down 12% at one point overnight, down 1,300 points. This despite hundreds of billions of dollars in liquidity. The Bank of Japan is flooding into the market, and the 1,300 point drop we saw overnight in the Nikkei ended up having the futures down 299 at one point last night. We ended up gapping down over 200 points this morning. Fear has just gripped the market right now, but what we are seeing is a lot of washing out. The Nikkei, the Japanese market, is essentially pricing in the island sinking into the sea. Not to understate the issues that they have there right now, but if you're watching Bloomberg right now, you're starting to see a lot of fund managers in Asia starting to go, well, you know what? It's getting really cheap over here. You got one choice, or actually you got two choices. Is it the end for Japan, or is this a great long-term buying opportunity? And, last I looked, Nikkei futures were down 35 points, which is really nothing given where they were a few hours ago, minus 300 plus. Not to say the carnage is over in Japan yet, but, we've got some positive signs. Like I said in the chat room this morning when the market was down almost 300 points, typically when you see the Asian markets lead us down on their own news, most of the time the U.S. markets rebound, and that is exactly what we saw. We saw the Dow, I believe, almost get back to minus 70 points going into the last 30 minutes of the day before day traders started unwinding their positions. SMH was very, very strong after the early gap down. I mean, let's face it, I'm a permabull. Everything I'm going to say is positive. I'm not a pessimist like the bears and shorts need to be to keep their trades on. And, I look at markets like this as opportunities for us. Look at all the stocks that are getting so cheap out there. Once, hopefully very soon, they resolve the nuke crisis in Japan and they can start working on their cleanup, you're going to see the markets go whew, and get a nice fat bounce. Essentially what our chore today was to scalp the moving stocks, and there have been lots of mover stocks. Despite how bad the market has been over the last few days, there have been a lot of nice scalp plays. But, we're high cash, waiting, ready to pounce on some of these beaten up stocks when we get our first indication that we have a possible market bottom, which, we've seen a couple of those over the last few days. But, the action today, very, very encouraging. It's going to depend on what the Nikkei does overnight. If we see the Nikkei start to stabilize here, and God forbid even try to go green, we could see a nice gap up in the U.S. markets sometime this week. Remember, we also have options expiration this week, so there's still a couple of days for them to whipsaw that market back and wipe out the value on some of those puts. Looking at the Dow 15-minute chart, you can see we are in a bullish falling wedge right now. Resistance is around 11,950. Essentially what we'd need to see is a break back over 12K. We are a little bit overbought on the 15-minute chart, given that big move we had over the last couple of hours of essentially, 180 point plus bounce, 150 points. I mean, looking at the daily chart, up right here I've thrown up the Fibonacci retracement levels. Going back to the November lows, and you'll see right where we bounced today was just above the 50% fib retracement. Now, one thing I want to hammer home, we had a nice bottom on this market 2 days ago. Then we had the Japanese earthquake, and then we had this nuclear crisis that's unfolding over there. There's a rule I repeat many times in the chat room, and you'll hear me repeat it many times down the road on certain stocks. No matter how good a stock chart is or an indice chart is, news always trumps charts. Simple as that. And that is exactly what we have seen play out in the indices. Looking at the SMH, we broke through that support level on the SMH. Next really big support level is 32, and that takes us down to, the 32 level where we started our breakout run in late December and into January. So, I really liked the action we saw on the SMH today. After the initial sell-off, it slowly worked its way back and, very, very strong. And that's why we continue to monitor it. Granted, our SMH calls we picked up a couple of days ago, at least we've got a month for them to make our money back on. Stock plays, we've been playing a lot of the nuclear slash Japanese recovery plays over the last couple of days. PESI, this is one that gave a fat gap this morning, then gave up the goose again, just like yesterday. These guys do nuclear waste cleanup. Hard to imagine with their expertise they don't get some sort of call from Japan. It's going to be all hands on deck over there, especially if things get really out of control. The action on this stock today, really surprising, but we've seen it happen on some of the other big movers before they took off, like RAME, LEI, sort of had similar trading patterns. You've got shorts coming in late in the day, pounding the stock down, and then it gaps the next day on whatever hype news is out there. Probably the real reason PESI is down here, and don't laugh when I say this, they make money. It's profitable. Shame on them for making money. That is the reason it's down here. They actually have a profit, believe it or not, and the stock is still struggling to run, while stocks that have, no profits and some slim reasons for running on the Japanese tragedy are up big. That's just how the market works. I still think we're a little bit early on this one. A close above 170 will light this one up. So our targets are 170, 195 plus, and let's see what's happening there. I mean, this is a profitable stock. Even if it gets beaten lower, we can add to our positions and eventually trade our way out. But with all the news flow out there about radiation, etc., it's really hard not to be sitting in a play like this. Eventually the crowds will find it. Now, a low float play, you've heard it over the years, CLWT. These guys do clean water in China. There's going to be a lot of contamination just from the tsunami, never mind the radiation pollution we have right now, and these guys have the equipment to do it. Breakout 150, really, really thinly traded stock. So if you're playing this one, do so very, very small. Now, you've heard a lot of talk. The nuke plants are down. You've got Germany saying they're going to shut down a couple of their nuclear plants. Natural gas prices have been exploding over the last couple of days because that is the go-to energy source for most of the world, especially in the US, and this is probably going to bottom out natural gas prices. Here we have GMET, which we played very successfully a week or so ago on the oil hype. They make money with gas prices trading down here at the lows. Imagine what they're going to do in a rising natural gas price market. I think this one really is a steal. And again, its issue, just like PESI is, they make money. Traders hate stocks that make money for some reason until they love them, and then they chase them up 200%. So this, couple of little areas to have a nice little position in. This is what I'm thinking. High cash stance, 75, 80% plus is ideal. And just looking for jumping into some of the moving stocks. Yesterday we had a monster winner in the chat room, CAEI, China Architectural. We jumped into this one, $1 and under. It hit our target of the 50-day moving average, 133 on the nose. Nothing like a 30% gain in a day's time. But this is another one to keep a really close eye on. These had initial big spikes. They might retrace a little, but the rebuild efforts, etc., are going to go on for a long time. So once we see some stabilization in the Japanese and then in the US markets, these are the kind of stocks that probably will do very well over the coming days and weeks. As for some of our other stock plays, NEI really washed out, but actually holding up very, very well considering what the market has done. And, a lot of these stocks have become very, very cheap. And, while we're not jumping into a whole lot of plays, I haven't been sending out many email alerts. Trades are in the chat room just because they're fast, quick trades and, want to be in and out, stay high cash. But once we see it turn up on the market, stocks like NEI, IPAS, MCZ, etc., those are the stocks that are down recently, on the market over the last couple of days that we're going to be looking to jump into. So, while we have some near-term pain with some of our plays and in our accounts, just look down the road. We've got some very, very beaten up stocks that are going to give fantastic buying opportunities very, very soon, especially when we finally put in a nice little bottom on the market. If you haven't looked at that video I sent out today, just to give you an idea how to trade a market like this, for a lot of traders, especially newbies, a market like this, it's best to just sit on your hands and, go home as flat as you can at night. Ideally, in a market like this, you want to be trading half positions, not trading full positions, taking really quick gains, and just looking to break even or minimize your losses as you wait for the market to turn around. So that's really it for the video tonight. If you've got any questions, feel free to shoot me an email, and I will see you guys in the chat room tomorrow. Good night.